The billionaire's heels echoed sharply against the polished granite floor as she swept into her high-rise nursery in a sleek Manhattan tower. She halted abruptly. A tall, broad-shouldered man, his flannel sleeves rolled up, his calloused hands improbably tender, was cradling her infant, tilting a warm bottle to the baby's lips. The baby's tiny fingers wrapped around his, and his low, calming voice filled the room. Her breath hitched, her chest tightening. She had never seen her son so serene until this moment. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're tuning in from, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button for more stories like this. Let's get started. Who are you? Her tone was sharper than she meant, but her heart was pounding with an unfamiliar feeling. The man looked up, surprised but steady. Lucas, he said softly, glancing back at the baby as if he were the only thing that mattered. I'm the temp from the agency. They said you needed someone tonight. She stepped closer, every instinct urging her to take her son back, but she couldn't move. The baby's eyelids fluttered, his lips gently working the bottle, completely at ease. I said no one touches him, she snapped, though her voice softened slightly. Lucas's jaw tightened. He was crying so hard he could barely catch his breath. I wasn't going to just stand there. Something in his steady gaze made her pause. He didn't look like the usual pristine, overly eager staff she employed. His eyes were weary, protective, with a hint of pain, as if he'd been misjudged too often. He wouldn't eat for me earlier, she admitted, almost reluctantly. That's because you were tense, he said gently, almost as if speaking to the baby. They sensed that. Sometimes they just need to feel secure. The word hit her harder than expected. Secure. When had she last felt that herself? But this was her son. And this stranger, this single dad from the agency, was in her home, her nursery, acting like he belonged. What makes you think you know what he needs? She challenged. His expression stayed steady, but his voice carried a raw edge. Because I've been there alone. No one to help. Just a baby who wouldn't stop crying and a heart that would have broken if I failed her. Her breath caught. Lucas shifted the baby in his arms, his movements careful, practiced. Look, I'm not here for money or favors. I just know what it's like when they need you more than anything. For a moment, the billionaire forgot her status, her rules, her guarded walls. All she saw was a man who understood. She didn't respond immediately. The sound of her son's slow, steady breathing seemed to fill the entire room. Lucas gently eased the bottle away, testing the milk's temperature with the back of his hand before placing it on the nearby table. Then, with surprising care, he draped a soft blanket over the baby's tiny form and kept rocking him. You can put him in the crib now, she said, her voice calmer but still cautious. He shook his head. Not yet. If I lay him down too soon, he'll startle and cry. He needs to know someone's holding him through it. Her eyes narrowed, but her chest tightened again at the sincerity in his tone. This wasn't the polished charm she was used to. It was genuine. You talk like you've done this 1,000 times, she said, crossing her arms. Lucas glanced down at the baby, brushing a finger gently over his cheek. Once was enough to change me forever. The answer was vague, but its weight was undeniable. Before she could press further, the baby let out a tiny sigh, nestling deeper into his chest. The sight stirred something in her. She had hired the best caregivers money could buy, yet none had ever calmed her son like this. What's your story? She asked suddenly, leaning against the nursery doorframe. Nothing worth telling, he said quietly, his eyes still on the baby. Just a dad trying to get by. Lost my daughter's mom when she was 3 months old. Learned the hard way you can't clock out when you're all they've got. Her throat tightened. She had grown up surrounded by wealth and staff, never knowing what it meant to lack support. She couldn't fathom doing it alone, without a safety net. Why take this job? You could have done construction, driven a cab, anything. His lips twitched, almost a smile. Because when you've been through nights where your baby won't stop crying and you're not sure you're strong enough to make it to dawn, you want to help others avoid that, even if it's just for one night. Her voice softened, almost against her will. That's kind of noble. He shrugged. It's just human. For a moment, their eyes met. The air felt heavier charged, not with romance, but with something that made her question why this stranger felt more grounding than the polished people in her life. She didn't realize until later that this night would be the first crack in the walls she'd built around herself. The baby stirred, a tiny whimper breaking the quiet. Lucas adjusted his hold instinctively, a movement born of muscle memory. He began to hum, low and warm, almost hypnotic, and the baby settled again. She caught herself staring. It wasn't just the humming. It was how his entire focus stayed on the baby, as if the world beyond didn't exist. "You're unusually good at this," she said, trying to sound casual. Unusually? His brow arched slightly. She shrugged. "Most men I know would fumble with a baby bottle." "I didn't have the luxury to fumble," he said simply. Then his eyes met hers, sharp but not unkind. "And maybe you shouldn't judge people by what you expect them to be." Her lips parted, caught off guard by how his words cut through her. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed on the dresser. She glanced at the screen, 3 missed calls from the company's CFO. She flipped the phone face down without answering. "You're ignoring someone important," he noted, still rocking her son. "You don't know anything about it," she shot back, more defensive than intended. "I know when someone's pretending a problem doesn't exist," he said, voice low but certain. Her chest tightened. No one spoke to her like that, not staff, not family. Yet she didn't feel offended, just exposed. "You think you've got me figured out?" she asked, stepping closer. "I think you're someone who's had to be strong for too long," he said. "And maybe you forgot what it's like to have someone share the load." Something hot pricked at her eyes. She turned away before he could see. "I don't need anyone to share my load." "That's the thing," Lucas said, softer now. "You don't need it, but sometimes it's okay to want it." The baby yawned, his tiny mouth stretching wide, and the tension in the room dissolved for a moment. She exhaled, leaning against the wall. "When was the last time you slept?" "Last night," he said with a faint grin. 4 hours. 4. She almost laughed. He nodded toward the sleeping baby. Parents take what they can get. For the first time in months, she felt her guard slip slightly. For reasons she couldn't yet grasp, this stranger's presence felt less like an intrusion and more like relief. What she didn't know was that before the night ended, this man would append her entire world. A sharp knock at the apartment door pierced the nursery's soft quiet. Her head snapped toward the sound, brows furrowing. No one came here unannounced. Lucas's gaze shifted, his body tensing in that instinctive, protective way. "Expecting someone?" "No," she said flatly, moving toward the hallway. "Stay here." But when she reached the door, Lucas was already there, baby monitor in one hand, the other resting lightly on the doorframe, not blocking her, but close enough to act fast. She hesitated, then opened the door a crack. 2 men stood there, dressed in suits that looked costly but slightly worn. One spoke first. "We need to talk. It's about your late husband's debts." Her stomach dropped. "You have no right to be here." "Ma'am," the second man said smoothly, "either you step outside or we discuss it right here." His eyes flicked past her toward the nursery hallway. Lucas's posture shifted instantly, calm but dangerous. "You've got 3 seconds to back off before this conversation ends." The first man scoffed. "And who are you?" "Someone who knows how to handle people who don't respect boundaries," Lucas said, his voice low enough not to wake the baby but sharp enough to cut through the tension. She caught the slight falter in the men's bravado, but they lingered. "This isn't over," one muttered before they turned and disappeared down the hallway. She shut the door quickly, locking it, her heart racing. "You didn't have to." "Yes, I did," Lucas cut in. "You were standing there with your guard down, and they were looking past you. That's not about debts. That's about leverage." Her hands trembled slightly. "They've been circling for weeks," she admitted, hating how vulnerable she sounded. "I thought ignoring them would make them stop." "People like that don't stop," Lucas said, meeting her eyes. "They wait until you're alone." She swallowed hard, the reality sinking in like ice. "You've dealt with people like that before." He didn't answer immediately. "Let's just say I've learned what matters most is keeping the ones who can't fight for themselves safe." Her gaze drifted to the baby monitor in his hand. For the first time that night, she realized he wasn't just good with her son, he was willing to stand in front of danger without hesitation. That, she thought, was something no money could buy. The apartment felt quieter now, but heavy, like the silence after a storm. She sat on the edge of the sofa, elbows on her knees, watching Lucas as he gently placed the baby in his crib. He lingered, one hand on the crib's railing, before returning to the living room. "You didn't have to stay after that," she said, her voice low. "Yeah," he replied, shrugging off his jacket. But I wasn't about to leave knowing someone might come back. She studied him, this stranger who, in less than a night, had shown more loyalty than some she'd known for years. "You talk like someone who's protected people before," she said. His eyes flickered, a shadow of memory passing over them. "I used to wear a badge before my daughter was born. Thought I could save the world. Turns out, saving one little life was enough." Her breath caught. "Your daughter." "Hey now," Lucas said, faint smile touching his lips. "Bright, stubborn, way too smart for me. She was born early. I was there every second, feeding her with one of those bottles, praying she'd make it through the night." Something inside her shifted. This wasn't just a man who could care for a child. He'd lived the fear, the exhaustion, the endless love that came with it. She leaned back, her voice softer than it had been all night. "Most people I deal with only care about what I can do for them. You're the first in a long time who's done something for me without expecting anything." Lucas met her gaze steadily. "Maybe that's because I'm not here for you." He glanced toward the nursery door. "I'm here for him." Her throat tightened, and before she could stop herself, she whispered, "Thank you." He nodded once, as if that was enough, and reached for his jacket. "I should go. Let you rest." But as he reached the door, she stood. "Lucas, wait." He turned, and for a heartbeat, neither spoke. Then she said, "I don't know what's coming with those men, but if you're willing, I'd like you to stay. Not just tonight." He searched her face, weighing her words, then gave a single, quiet nod. "All right." And as the door stayed shut and the city lights glimmered beyond the windows, she knew this wasn't just about hiring someone to watch her son. It was the start of something neither of them could yet name.